I think we'll get started now. It's almost time. So, hello everyone. Let me start with a number. 2.8 trillion dollars. Yes, 2.8 trillion dollars. That's 2.8 followed by 12 zeros. You know, that's how much climate disasters have caused the world over past 2 decades. And the worst part, the cost is still rising and fast. And here's a question: as an innovator, as technologists, as investors, and ecosystem leaders, are we building for the world we have or the world that's coming, right? That's a $1 million question, I would say. Welcome everyone. My name is Naman, and I'm thrilled to have you all with us for a session that goes beyond buzzwords, and gets into the core of what it's really take to build climate resilient tech products. Because in today's world, building tech isn't just about speed and scale, it's about staying power, it's about resilience, it's about responsibility. And we are not just asking, can we scale this product, but we are asking, can it survive the extreme heat waves, floods, or droughts? Can it serve the underserved when supply chain breaks down? And does it help reduce emissions or shift the burden elsewhere? And most importantly, does it adapt the planet changes? And these are not hypothetical questions anymore. They are the blueprint for what future ready tech must look like. And what better place to host this conversation than Open Innovator platform? This is a global platform for bold thinkers, doers, and co-creators. And we are proud to bring together industry leaders, deep tech startups, researchers, institutions, investors, policymakers. Everyone has joined us today, and not just the network, but to solve the real world problem. With a strong presence across India, Europe, and UAE, Open Innovator is your one point ecosystem to discover cutting edge solutions, build partnerships, and drive impact where it matters the most. And today we are joined by leaders from across the region and domains, all bringing diverse perspective to one shared challenge, which is how do we build that tech that doesn't just survive the climate crisis, but helps the world thrive through it, right? And I would request all our speakers, all our guests to please be on the screen once. And time to meet our powerhouse panel now. All right, there you have it. We have got a stellar lineup joining us from across Europe and the UK. Think of it as we call it Tech Avengers Squad, but with more data, fewer capes, and a lot more real world impact. So first up, joining us from Berlin, we have Doreen with over 17 years of experience, shaping Europe's clean energy climate tech ecosystem. Doreen wears many hats. She's a founder, she's an advisor, she's an investor, and even ex-journalist. So she's a vocal supporter of women entrepreneurship as well, and a force in climate conversation. Doreen, welcome, Doreen. Welcome to have you with us.
Hello.
Next,
Thanks.
all right. So next, dialing in from London, we have Rajshri Ray. He is the climate SME subject matter expert for SLB's digital sustainability portfolio and brings deep insight into energy transition, ESG, and sustainable finance. Basically, if climate innovation had a strategy deck, he's the guy you would want to build it with. So good to have you, Rajshri.
Thank you, Naman. Looking forward to the discussion.
All right. Now from Cambridge, we have Wendy New. So Wendy is the Sustainability Innovation Manager at BSI. And here's a quick mic drop moment. Wendy has studied at MIT, Harvard, and completed her PhD at the University of Cambridge. And speaking of Cambridge, I was there just a few weeks ago, and let me tell you, there's something magical about that place. The energy, the intellect, and the innovation, it's all in the air. So Wendy, it's great to have someone from the ecosystem with us today. And when she speaks, we know it's worth tuning in. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you very much for having me.
And back to Berlin now, we are clearly building a climate tech capital, I would say. We have got Tessilo Weber. Can we have Tessilo on the screen, please? He's a founder of ClimeStart, climate tech enthusiast, and just casually the author of 14 books. Yes, 14. Welcome, Tessilo. Can we have Tessilo on the screen, please? Offer it. And rounding us out, we have Yassine, who is also joining us from Berlin. I told you we have got a Berlin majority today. Yassine blends deep tech and sustainability like a true chemist, and with a background in chemistry and a master's in sustainability entrepreneurship. He's worked at the intersection of research and connecting startups, investors, and building a vast community of like-minded entrepreneurs. Welcome, welcome, Yassine.
Thank you.
So what a panel we have. I think we are all set. But before we dive in, we also have an innovator in the house who's building something truly unique, right? Joining us from India, a country you simply can't ignore when it comes to bold ideas and tech breakthrough. We have Mridul, the founder of Mankomb. So his team has developed an AI-powered line of home appliances, which is very interesting, with a sharp focus on sustainability. So their flagship product is called Chiwi, which is a smart waste processor that turns wet waste into clean, usable solution. Right. Welcome, Mridul. Mridul will be presenting in the second half of this session. So to everyone who's tuned in, stay with us. It's going to be, an innovative ride. All right, we have all our speakers on the screen. And perfect. So before we jump into individual perspective, let's take a moment to acknowledge something important, I would say. We often hear buzzwords: resilience, sustainability, net zero, planet positive. And while, they sound inspiring, anyone who's actually built a climate focused product knows it's hard, harder than it looks. And there are truths people don't always talk about publicly. So before we go deeper into solution, let's start with honesty. To all our speakers, we have a question, right? What's one hard truth you have learned while, working on a climate resilient tech that people don't talk about enough, but absolutely should? And Doreen, I'll start with you. You have worked so closely with startups, investors, and ecosystem builders, right? We have gone through your profile. In your experience, what's one hard truth about building truly climate resilient product that doesn't get enough attention?
I can't unlock.
No, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, it was hard to unlock my exactly. Go again for the question, please.
So what's one hard truth about building a truly climate resilient product, that doesn't get enough attention as per your experience?
Yeah, because so far what we've done in the world, we invested heavily in mitigation technologies, which are wind, solar, and everything, meaning mitigating CO2 and trying to lower down the CO2. Unfortunately, that has not worked as much as we wanted to. We didn't achieve the 1.5 Paris goal. Emissions are up, and we continue on top of it with fossil fuel business models across the world. So what's happening across the globe is, and as we can see actually in Europe with the current heat wave, weather extremes are increasing. Whether it's floods, whether it's heats, whatever it is. And so we need to move from developing mitigation technologies into adaptation technologies, which means we need to make cities more livable again, because they're becoming hotter if we want it or not. So we need technologies that are cooling down. We need more trees that cool things down. We need different types of air conditioning, because if you continue using the air conditioning that exists, it just uses way too much energy. It's not efficient, it's not healthy. So there is a need for like a whole range of new technologies that either prevent or adapt our way of living and basically save lives ultimately in the future. Because depending on how much like we will scale mitigation technologies, meaning wind and renewables and stuff, in order to keep the CO2 output where it is, and we may reach 2 degrees, then we may be okay. Still, we need adaptation technologies. If we can't manage that, and if we go up in the heat, like if we go up to 2.5, 3, or even 4 degrees, we have a real issue. Like, we need way more adaptation technologies, or what you call climate resilient technologies and products that will keep us alive, basically.
Well, that's an interesting point to start with. We need more and more tech that help uh, in cooling down the overall processors and other things, right? So good point. Point noted. And Wendy, we'll come to you next. From your vantage point, what's one thing that's most overlooked, and when we need to talk about more about the sustainability part.
Hmm. I think one thing, just to maybe follow up a little bit on what Doreen said, is perhaps some of the lack of certainty that we have in this field. There is a lot that we do know, but for example, the science is evolving, how we understand what we're doing is evolving. Certainly the political and the regulatory landscape is always evolving. So I think a level of flexibility, I mean, to be innovators is to be flexible, but I think particularly in this field, there is a mindset and approach that you need to kind of go with where the market's going, where the winds are going, where the latest kind of scientific research is telling you. And I think we'll need to keep that in mind while we're trying to have that kind of positive impact on the world.
That's the point. Thank you, Wendy. And Rajeshri, would love to hear your thoughts. What's one thing that surprised you on the ground that people don't often talk about? So that's our starting question. Yes.
I would lean more towards what Wendy suggested. And to be honest, I have not directly worked, I have never worked for a startup, but I get a chance to interact with a lot of startups being from the corporate side of things. One challenge which I feel is often overlooked and why these technologies are probably not scaled is the business case fails. The ideas are great. We know the science, the ideas are great, but essentially a business only comes into being when you see the profitability of it. And because sustainability is a global issue, but the challenges faced by nations are in different paradigm. What you see in Africa is probably not the way you see it in Europe. And cognizance of that disparity is very important when you're designing a product. And it becomes very difficult to speak the language. Let's say you're building something brilliant which is technologically very advanced, but if you can't sell it at a price point in a let's say South Asian economy where the common people can leverage it, then it's of no use. Ultimately the business case fails, and if it fails, then there is only a certain limit investors would want to invest in that. And to Wendy's point, like she mentioned, the the leverage cost of capital that you get per unit of your production constantly goes on reducing with let's say renewable energy and stuff like that. So the investors don't get confidence that the level at which I'm investing now, the ROI would be higher than that. In fact, they escape that it would be lower than what they're investing. Hence, it's a chicken leg kind of situation. This I have seen to be the biggest problem in innovation in the sustainability space from my almost a decade's experience now.
Well, thank you, Rajvi. That's actually a very interesting point. From Africa to Europe or even to India or South Asian market, everything changes drastically. So great point. And in fact, we'll come to this again in the round two, and we'll discuss this in detail. And now we'll move to Tessilio. Tessilio, what's one hard truth you have faced while translating big climate ideas into real world resilient products? I would say. You're on mute. Yes, you're on mute. You can unmute yourself. I think you have all the access to see you. All right, so we'll ask our team to again check. While they check the settings, we'll move to Yasin. Yasin, while they make Tessilio the presenter, we'll move to you. From your experience in deep tech and the climate entrepreneurship, what's something you have seen firsthand that you believe deserve more honest conversation?
Well, thank you. I think a lot of important points have been raised already. But I think so, generally speaking, when it comes to talking about building a successful product or more generally a successful startup, which is more my field of expertise, you'll often hear that from top incubators like Y Combinator, that you need to love your product, right? To be passionate about it, to be an expert, and to surround yourself with these smart people that you trust and that you respect. And the truth is that this works actually, and it's definitely a great foundation to move forward, right? However, when we start talking specifically about sustainability or climate resilience within our current economic system, then things get a little bit more complicated, right? If we want to do real good, we often have to add this layer of complexity, right? And this is, I think, what Ray and Wendy were mentioning. So the hard truth is that there is probably no one size fits all solution, right? So here, maybe don't get me wrong. There are some patterns and a growing body of knowledge as well. By the way, I would highly recommend the book of my former academic director at ESCP, Florian Lüdecke-Freund, on sustainable business model design, which presents actually 45, I think, patterns for the design of next generation business models for sustainability. So there are patterns, right? But I believe that there is no one size fits all solution. And the key here and the hard truth is that we have to embrace this complexity. So it needs to be contextual, and sometimes it has to go a bit further away than what we think is good. So this would be my message.
So that's a good to the point note, Yassine. Thank you. We'll move to Tessilio. I see Tessilio there. Still, so I believe there's some challenge in the settings. I think I see you as a presenter, but I don't know why you can't unmute yourself. Okay, could you please try joining in again? Just log out and log in once again while we. Perfect. So I think we have this was quite a quick round one. Thank you for all those honest and eye-opening reflection. I see a lot of our attendees who have made notes and are also engaging in the chat board. Our team are responding to them. Now that we have warmed up with a collective view, let's dive in a little deeper. In round two, we have a set of personalized questions that we have specially tailored based on the profiles. Cecilio, is it working now?
Sorry.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I would love for you to come in and please share your views.
Yeah, I can quickly share my 2 cents. So for me, I would like to bring in a little bit different perspective. For me, since one of my former startups was a nature tech startup, for me, always the elephant in the room is the widely ignored complete dependency of almost all products and services on nature. So we focus more and more on climate and CO2 emissions and reduction, but actually the whole economy depends on nature, and like 50% of it heavily depends on it. And there are, of course, like obvious products like from crops and nutrition products that come from nature directly, but also like medical products, which if we want to keep producing them, we actually have to factor into the business model that we also sustain nature as its foundation. So for me, I'm always shocked how little this is acknowledged. So.
Well, that's a beautiful point to sum up round one. More than 50% or almost 50% of the economy depends on nature. Very interesting take. We'll now move to round two. And round two, as I said, we have a personalized set of questions. Let's start with what does it truly take to build a climate resilient tech product? Because in the last 5 years or so, there is a lot of talk on emerging tech, be it AI, IoT, Meta, Gen AI, right? Now the pointed question is, what does it take to build a climate resilient tech product, right? Let's begin at the root of the challenge with the builders. So Yassine, I'll start with you this time. You have worked hands-on with climate ventures, right? And sustainability focused founders. So let me ask you this, Yassine, so what's the biggest mindset or approach shift you think founders need when building climate tech products? Not that are not only innovative but truly scalable and impactful. And mind you, there are many startup founders who have joined us today, so they all are patiently waiting to get this answer.
So I think you shared these statistics on LinkedIn that 90% of deep tech startups fail beyond the seed stage. This is a huge number, right? So honestly, I'm not surprised, and I think that in climate it might be a little bit higher. Because here's the thing. So I believe that we cannot solve today's problem with the same mindset that created them. And this would be my key message, right? I think that we've spent probably the last 2 centuries perfecting our industrial methods and our industrial mindset, focused on efficiency, extraction, hockey-stick growth. But now we are acknowledging more and more that we live in a physical world, right? And with limited resources. So now I maybe have a question, right, for everyone listening to us. So would you trust even the best car driver to pilot a spaceship? I probably not, right? Because the tools today are different. The environment is different, and the mindset has to be different too. So maybe the biggest shift to completely answer the question would probably to start with unlearning. And what do I mean with unlearning? So I think that resilience asks us to slow down, right? To go maybe deeper, to look into nature, as Tassilo was mentioning, and have this context in mind, right? So something that an amazing idea in Berlin, in Germany, might not work in France or India, right? So I think here again there are some probably companies that are doing this very well, and the most known example is probably Interface, right? The American carpet company. They didn't just green their supply chain; they completely reinvented their business model around sustainability, right? And so there is a great book about that from Ray Anderson that I can also share in the chat. And the truth is that doing this is hard, right? And so learning new things is already hard, but so unlearning what we've been conditioned to believe about success, about speed, about growth, right, is even harder. Especially when that conditioning has shaped our whole education, our whole career path, and identity. And I think that's something we can all experience, right? But if we want climate solutions that actually work, then we have to start by changing the lens we're looking through.
Well, that's an interesting take. And just to sum it up, learning, unlearning, and relearning, that's the need of the hour, I would say, for all the startups listening here today. Thank you, Yassine. We'll move to Tassilo. Tassilo, on the same theme, on the same note, you have created platforms like Verdant Earth, Climb Start, right? Straddling climate tech, education, biodiversity financing. So from my pointed question to you is, from your experience, what's one major ecosystem level barrier you see when launching climate focused products, and what advice, a follow-up question, what advice would you give to overcome it and ensure wider and broader adoption?
Yeah, so Climb Start is like an education platform for climate tech founders. So, and one thing that I really want to make clear there for founders is that in the early 2020s, like the whole industry of climate tech got like a new impulse because they got a new narrative. Like we have this goal of net zero 2050, and then we also got the biodiversity 3030 goal, and suddenly through Project Drawdown and so on, we got the whole plethora of possible approaches how to do like the climate transition, and that was great. But there was one piece of this whole new narrative that I think is misleading, and this is like the green premium, which is like that, sustainable products and climate-friendly products can justify that they actually cost more because they're good for the planet, good for the environment, good for the atmosphere, and so on. And maybe in B2C, with some customer segments, wealthier segments, you can justify that and people are willing to pay more. But like 80% of the climate tech industry is B2B. And when you're dealing with companies, they will not care that your product is good for the planet or anything. Their economics are so strict, they just will go for the cheaper product or the better product. So you need to provide just a better product, which happens to be green. And this is like an ecosystem barrier that I see, and a creative solution can also only happen from the ecosystem, which is that the players in climate tech start more to collaborate, especially with the circular economy, where materials that get circulated are actually cheaper, and that the whole ecosystem starts collaborating and supporting itself to drive down the prices and increase the quality while still maintaining the climate goals. So
Right. Well, there you have it, promoting better green products, and you'll see one in a short while uh, around sustainability. So now let's switch to how we build ethics into design. And for this, we'll move to Rashri. Rashri, you have worked a lot on digital sustainability, AI, and emission intelligence, as we say it, right? So from what you have seen, Rashri, what's one practical design principle or guardrail that climate tech startup should embed right from day zero to ensure they are not just innovative, as they say it, but also ethically and environmentally responsible?
Thanks, Aman. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that space is evolving with the evolution of AI and the emission tech side of things as well. But one bit which I feel consistently is important in this space is transparency and auditability. I think it just doesn't tie up to the piece that you are having a lineage of the work that you're doing, but it is also essential for you if you want to get a financial incentive from it. The whole point of any company starting off, at least I can speak for the largest organizations, we have got to understand that they're capitally driven. They're not driven by doing good. Okay, that's just not how it works, at least till now. So when we understand that's the model, they take it seriously only when they are made liable for it. So with the whole part of greenwashing being so aggressive and some companies having burned so badly with it, at least the larger organizations, this is what I see companies care for really, really a lot. As long as you can prove what you're claiming that you have done, that's a good start. And even if you don't need to report right now, let's say a lot of regulations in Asia, they are slowly picking up with ISSB coming in 2024. There was literally no regulation till now, and independent governments are adopting modes of IFRS to come up with their own reporting mechanisms, which is unlike, let's say, Europe, which had CSRD probably brewing up for some time. So when you can show what you have done and defend it over the last few years, that you have collected data, it is auditable and it's reportable, that's when I feel there's a belief system that yes, what you are claiming is true, and that's what gives investors also confidence and for those companies to benefit from those kind of let's say for future fund inflows. That would be my I think my understanding around how this ecosystem is working.
That's very well put. I think we all have made our notes. Transparency and accountability. These are two major factors that needs to be considered by.
Auditability as well. I would add
Yes,
auditability. Yeah.
auditability. All right, perfect. All right. Now, of course, big shifts also need bold fundings, and some of the investors have also joined this discussion from this part of the world. So, Doreen, we'll come to you. You have advised both investors and founders across Europe's climate innovation landscape. So, what's one mindset shift you believe investors must make to move beyond just commercially scalable solutions that we often talk about? And, they actually start accelerating funding into solutions that are genuinely, climate resilient. What's your take on it, Dori?
Well, I think the investors go where they have the safest market. So I don't think any investor is, there are a few around who just simply do impact and they invest in the long run and they also have good results with it. But ultimately, most VCs that I know, there are, they're under pressure by their own investors. So, and which is something you see in Europe because we're missing a lot of money to scale. And it's actually more the regulators that have to come in here and they have to provide security of investments, make the market more sexier, make sure that we do keep certain innovations. And the most important thing, and this is what you see in the US, where you do have most of some of the largest investors, is you have to have a market for the technology, whatever you invest in. So I give you an example. What happens in Europe a lot is we do have a huge number of out of university startups, like startups who really come like great innovators, right? And they get a lot of grants initially. There's good funding, early seed funding, and they can develop their technology. But when it then comes to scaling the technology or actually having customers from that, like for example, the government is a big customer in the US for a lot of startups. So is it in Israel, a lot of other countries. And what happens in Europe is all of a sudden a tender comes in, and then they're selecting the cheapest, whatever product solution it is, and that's usually coming from Asia. So we are not protecting our own ecosystem. We're not protecting our own innovations, our own developments that happened in a solar space, that happened in the battery space. Look at Northvolt. That happened in the air drone space with Volocopter and with Lilium, and I can go on and on and on. So the problem is that if we do not start making sure that our startups have a market and they are secured, we will not see investors coming at large scale into Europe. And this is what we need. We don't need the 100 million VCs. What we need is the 1 trillion VCs in order to scale technology and to really build value chains. If we don't have that, and if we don't get that going in the next 4 years, we will have a major problem. I hope that answered your question. So it's back from the, it's not the investors that are the investors are always looking for the best return of invest, period. I mean, nobody's going to invest in anything that doesn't have any return of invest. I mean, that's a VC. Then you go with a like EIB or whatever public money. But if you are a venture capitalist, your ultimate goal is return of invest. You may go for a long term, but you need something like a secure market.
Well, ultimate goal, that return on the investment, is what everyone follows, I would say. Yes, thank you. And finally, let's talk about how do we build trust in what's being already built. And Wendy, we'll come to you now. In your view, how can trust, in standards and frameworks help organization move from a well-meaning intent to truly measurable impact when it comes to, climate resilience in particular?
Absolutely. So if you forgive me, I'm going to introduce a little bit more about BSI first. So BSI is the British Standards Institution. And for those of you who don't know, standards are essentially a framework, a set of sort of guidelines, which is put together by a group within an industry that says what best practice looks like. So what does good look like in a particular field? And as I said, it's determined by a group of people, so it's a collaborative effort. And at BSI, we're over 120 years old, and there are standards for absolutely everything from tea making to quality to information security, all kinds of different things. And, as a set of guidance, what we get a lot from our clients is basically, we know sustainability is important. Maybe, we have a good team set up, but we don't really know what to do. Is there a standard that helps to guide us through that journey? And of course, we have some existing standards around things like greenhouse gas emissions, certain things like that can help. But also as an organization, we are looking in this new field of, newer areas of sustainability potentially to set up those guidelines. So as an example, since we've talked about nature a little bit already, one set of frameworks that my colleagues are currently working on is to do with actually working collaboration with the department here in the UK, and it's based on nature investment standards. So here in the UK, we are looking to build up nature markets, similar to carbon markets, but using nature and biodiversity as assets and thinking about how that can work with a market mechanism. Now, I'm sure you've all come across the controversy surrounding particularly the voluntary carbon market and the lack of trust and things that are happening there. And there's work going on to try and set some frameworks around that too. But nature markets are a relatively new concept, I think, and particularly in the UK, it's been formalized in some regulation. So working with a government department, my colleagues are actually setting up a set of nature investment standards. So the idea is, what are some of the overall principles that we can set up to guide the way that a nature market should run? And alongside that, some of the more detailed things, for example, about how we can assurance frameworks, for example, having talked about auditability already today with Ray, how can we measure some of these things? What kind of evidence do we need in different aspects of nature? It's very broad. And that's being done at the moment in consultation with a sort of online community. So for those of you who are interested, I encourage you to look up the Nature Investment Standards Hub, and you'll find there are different online communities providing feedback on these standards and frameworks. Because it's once you have the sector-wide agreement on best practice, like sort of like having a common language, basically. And that means that as technology is developing, as businesses are kind of changing, looking at their strategies and their own actions, it could be a really useful place to guide action, as well as to kind of assure and to audit against those where that's appropriate.
Well, Wendy, would love to know more about this Nature Investment Startup Hub that you just mentioned, right? We'll take the discussion offline. But thank you for highlighting this perspective. And with this, that brings us to the end of round 2 with such insightful perspective from each of you. Now, before we head to round 3, where every panelist will share their final thoughts before closing reflections, we also, we are now taking a short detour, I would say, into something hands-on. Right, I would like to bring in Mridul without further ado, founder of Mankomb, for a quick demo. Mridul, you have 6 minutes, right? He'll give us a quick glimpse into his solution, and then we'll return to our final round of discussion. Mridul, over to you. Show us what you've got. Your voice, there is a bit of disturbance in your voice. You need to check your audio settings once.
Is it better now?
Better, much better. Yes, over to you, Mridul.
Okay. Hey, thanks. So,
again, it's a little disturbance. I think you're using earphones. I would suggest, you check your settings once again.
Just give me one moment.
It's better now. It's better now. But when you're presenting, it's again, there is a bit of disturbance in the background. Try again.
Give me one moment. I'll take it off.
Also, if there is a live demo, we would love to see that.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you see?
Yes.
Hey, great. So I will not use the tech since that's the problem. But basically, this is where we are. I'm joining from Bangalore, from NASSCOM's Center of Excellence for IoT and AI. So what we have here is Chewy. Mankomb, we are an AI native home appliance startup. And we believe in making sustainable living effortless, accessible, and fun. Now, why do we think so? Today, any sort of climate tech product that you take, there is always this additional effort involved in using it. For example, a composter, a wet waste bin, which there are technologies out there. We are not the only ones to make these. The problem is there is a second level of sorting of what you already sort. So what do I mean by that? Today, any composter you take, you could probably put in vegetable waste into it, vegetable peels into it. It takes 25, 30 days. There is a lot of churning involved, etc. What happens is ultimately there is a very niche segment who are truly passionate about sustainability who end up using this. And hence, the target market is small. It doesn't make market sense for scaling such a company. And hence, you don't see mainstream players, mainstream tech, etc. So what we have done is, in case of Chewy, it is a fully automatic wet waste bin. All the user has to do is, take the plate to the device. The lid automatically opens. The waste is dumped in. Now, this can take any sort of waste. It can take fluids, meat, bones, soups. There is no problem with liquids. And once the waste goes in, when the lid closes, we have Vision AI, which is looking at what is exactly going into the device. Now, this is super important, and this is also what our USP and the patent is all about. We look at what is going in so as to actively control the biodecomposition parameters. What do we mean by this? When the food goes into it, we flush it down. I pulled out the shredder because it is difficult to take it there. So this is a shredder. It's a scaled down industrial shredder, which can take out meats, bones, and everything. Shreds it into pieces of specific size, goes into a digestion chamber, which is inside Chewy. Here, we sample various parameters. We look at how the food stings, literally. We are looking at various gases, which is coming out of it. We are looking at the temperature, humidity parameters, by which we know what is the stage of the biodecomposition, and we actively control the various parameters such as temperature, pressure, oxygen concentration, which we realized is super important in the biodecomposition process. And what we have at the end of 8 hours in case of vegetable waste, or 40 hours by adding, by the way, we also add certain bioenzymes such as peptinase, etc., to break down proteins. What we have at the end of 8 to 40 hours is reagent soil, something which is sterile, looks like soil, certified by the government labs as good as soil, and can be used for planting. No need of mixing it like the other outputs out there. And this is what we have achieved so far in the lab. Today, we have around 50 units out there, which are running endurance trials in the houses, because this is positioned as a home appliance. This is the only wet waste bin that is necessary in the households. So what we have effectively done, starting from 50 houses in Bangalore, we'll be scaling soon to triple-digit number to deliver our pre-booked units, is that the user just puts it into it, shuts it, forgets it. At the end of the month, the user takes out a bag of a reagent soil, which can be used for potting, planting, or exchanged in the farms. And what we have gotten rid of are miles and miles of garbage trucks, daily pickup of wet waste out, and no more wet waste going into landfill from the households that are using Chewy today. And this is where we are now, and this is what the product is about.
On time, Rudol. Thank you. Short and crisp. Any questions? I see, Ray approving your pitch. Any questions quickly before we move to round 3? All right, there are more applause.
Yeah, I had one for Mridul. Thanks, Mridul, for sharing. That was really amazing. What is the price point for this product?
So today we are priced the introductory unit, that's the 1,000 units. We are selling it at 25,000 Indian rupees per unit. And as we go to scale, we would be harmonizing this price.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Mridul. Always inspiring to see ideas, into action. Now, as promised, we are back for round 3, our closing reflections, we say it. We have heard the insights on challenges, mindset shift, and, what it really takes to bring climate tech to life. Now, but let's, take a moment to look ahead, I would say. So one final question to all of you is, if we were to fast forward 5 years from now, let's say 2030, right, 2030, what is one visible shift, whether in technology, collaboration, or mindset, that would tell you that we are not just, building climate tech prototypes, but actually making real progress in building truly climate resilient solutions? We'll go with Ray first. Ray.
Thanks. If I'm too fast, I think 5 years might be too ambitious, because we are probably already hitting 1.5 by then. But still, if I'm looking at a little longer horizon, I think we tend to look at sustainability and ESG as a cost, not a revenue. Okay, this is something that we cannot change overnight. It takes time to build the models that we have discussed all throughout this call. One shift that I think we should have is probably to have a system thinking approach rather than just a solution mode approach. What we currently tend to do with most solutions that we come up with in industries is look at a localized problem and build a localized solution. We tend to forget the upstream and the downstream, both impact and benefit of it. So I come from an industry which is mostly upstream for everything that comes downstream, from chemicals to, like, you literally, like all of us on this call, you look around you, there's hardly a product which doesn't have carbon footprint. So if you are trying to make impact in a certain category, I think you have to think right from the raw material stage till the end of use stage, and think of substitutes across the entire value chain, not just in your product, and then come up with a price point which could be potentially as close as competitive to the one which is the original product. I think this is one change that I would love to see, but I understand the complication of it even for doing for one product. But I hope we reach there sometime. That is what I'm trying to do in my day-to-day life with the kind of products that I work with.
Thank you, Ray. I love the point that, you need to have a check on both impact and benefit, right? I believe we all are making notes. And Tesilo, moving to you, your take on this. Fast forward to 5 years, or let's say 10 years down the line.
Well, I go optimistically with 5 years. So I think one like self-perceptive or like philosophical problem, sorry, I studied that stuff, is that we don't, when we produce products and services, we just don't think in the long term. And even in terms of business models, if we would automatically think in a longer term and a longer time horizon, the business model would of sustainable products and services would look much better than it does in the short term compared to unsustainable products. So right now we already have so much data and better tools that could be used to actually provide this perspective and bring in more data predictions, especially using AI for this. So one shift that I would like to see to like change business as usual, which is really at the core of big corporates, is that product managers and project managers within corporates would actually use more those tools and take it as the standard to integrate this long-term perspective based on data and new tools. So this is actually what I would really like to see, and which I believe could change things in its core.
That's quite an optimistic note. Thank you, Cecilio. We'll go to Doreen next. Doreen, your take on, fast forward to 5 years, or let's say 10 years down the line, one visible shift that you see.
I think generally in the climate tech, as I said, like I think we have to move into adaptation and climate resiliency. I see investors looking at it. I also see a shift in moving into hardware more, because that's been a lack in Europe in terms of the investments. There's been a lot of focus on software, and that has to do with the short turnaround of returns, basically, and less risk. So I think we will have a separation, or we will see a separation of the true impact investors who are really in it for the real thing and long term, and see the value in it. And then we'll see those who are moving, and we see that already. We see those who are moving into defense tech or whatever tech that is to just make a big buck. So I think the time of a CO2 focused investment strategies are over. Yeah, which means there is no need to greenwash anymore. There is no need to just focus on how much CO2 you save, because that won't make money. Climate tech, as it is seen partially as not lucrative to invest in, or not profitable. So, which leaves investors that are truly dedicated to this, and the rest will probably move out.
Interesting take, bringing in more hardware-powered products into the market. Well, some motivating thing from Mridul, I believe, right? And with this, we'll move to Wendy. Wendy, your take?
I think maybe building on some of the stuff that's said already, one thing that I would like to see changing is a more of a collaborative mindset. I think obviously there is still competition, and it's always going to inevitably be a part of it. But as folks have mentioned today already, sustainability is a system level problem, and one player, one company, or even one sector by itself is simply not going to have the impact. So whether it's across a single value chain, looking at people who need to collaborate to think about how to improve our impacts in that area, or whether it's something in new technology, for example, the amount of effort and frankly investment it takes to scale an exciting new technology is probably not something a single player can do. So that kind of cross-sector investment in action in new technology, I think that will be a very exciting way perhaps to push us forward.
Interesting point. In fact, I would also, like to do a small addition to what Wendy said. more of a collaborative action as well as more of co-creation opportunities wherein industries and startups come together under the open innovation model and support more and more sustainable platforms. When Yasin, over to you, your take, and then we'll go to Mridul before we close.
I think before going into an optimistic projection directly, I just wanted to stress how important it is to start where we are right now. And where we are right now is that we are not on track. So Ray, you mentioned this 1.5 target before, and we're clearly out of reach now. Just last week, there was a group of French scientists and former IPCC authors that just clearly stated for the first time that limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees is no longer attainable. So this is a fact. And at the same time, in Europe, we are seeing weakened climate regulations in place. So there was this latest omnibus proposal, which could reduce the number of companies required to report under CSRD by up to 80%. So, of course, while it may be good news for some companies, that also mean less transparency, less accountability, and less incentives for a real change. So this is just to bring some fact and reality here. But now, if we imagine real progress in the coming years, I'd look into very measurable physical indicators. So here it's maybe my chemist background, where I would look at the metrics, right? So lower CO2 emissions, healthier soil and water, and also restored biodiversity. Because in the best of the world, right, again, in the best of the projection, we are not just talking about sustainability, we are going beyond that, and we are going to talk about regeneration and regenerating ecosystems. And as the IPCC report again clearly stated many times, that restoring and protecting ecosystem is one of the most effective strategies for both climate adaptation and mitigation. And they also want that without healthy ecosystem, many adaptation efforts will just fail, right? And if this is what we aim for, this is also something we need to take into consideration. And I believe that this starts probably with education. And I had the chance to experience the climate frisk. I don't know if there are other people here who know about it. So I had to experience this as a witness, right? It's a 3 hours workshop, and I became a facilitator also a couple of years ago for younger generations and adults. And this is also something I would definitely recommend everyone to do, to just have better visualization of what is happening. So just to conclude, if we are not shifting those real world metrics, then we are not truly changing the outcome.
All right, Cecilio, your take.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? I got lost in the narrative.
So I was saying, so fast forward, let's say fast forward to 5 years from now, what is one visible shift, whether in technology or whether in collaboration mindset, that would tell you were not just building for climate tech prototypes, but actually making real progress in building truly climate resilient solutions?
Yeah, I mean, quickly about my background here. I'm for longer than I'm in climate tech, I'm in human-centered design. So for like 12 years, I'm consulting startups and companies on, especially in design thinking, to always like put the user in the middle of attention. And when I got into climate tech, I saw that shift, or that mindset was a little bit forgotten, and suddenly everything was about the environmental impact of the product and so on. And I would say that the shift that has to happen is not only that we understand that climate tech and climate solutions need to be human-centered. So in the end, it's not about the planet and the environment and the atmosphere after all, it's about humanity, that we are still like able to survive, because even if we're like going extinct, the planet will recover, even if it takes 1 billion years. So whatever we build in the end needs to be used by somebody, by a customer, by a user. It needs to improve people's lives. So we have to bring in this human-centered perspective also in climate solutions. Otherwise, there is no use case, no business model, no adaptation. At the same time, I see that through providing those climate solutions, we have the chance to actually introduce to users and customers a broader perspective, that it's not only them at the center of the solution, but actually that they are part of a greater environment, and that we are not just a species, we're a planetary species. So, I mean, now like Elon Musk or whatever always speaks about, we need to become like an interplanetary species. But actually, we have to grow into being consciously a planetary species. And I think that with climate solutions, we can actually indirectly bring this perspective to the users and customers, that they see, okay, I can use this product and it brings me or my company benefits. At the same time, it positions my company more as part of a broader ecosystem, and therefore helps me and my company to thrive and survive in the long term. Yeah, sorry for this very philosophical perspective.
No, that's a good take. That's a good take, Mridul.
So I'll keep it short, and this is what I have to say. My 2 cents is climate tech, we believe, is not just a tech play. What we have seen a lot in our space, in the startup space, is it's crucial to win both hearts and spreadsheets. The customers must enjoy using it as much as the investors would want to invest in it. And the challenge also comes in that it's a combination of systems change, behavioral change, and economics at play. It's a little complex, but now with tech stack, which is readily available, it's only a matter of time before climate tech becomes a new category and more startups begin to innovate and make real products that can make money out there sustainably.
Well, there you have it. So before we close, we'll go around the table one last time, and we'll just have one last say and just quickly in 30 seconds, any message that you want to give to all our attendees who have joined us today. Ray, we'll start with you. Anything that you wish to share with all our attendees today?
I think I would like to highlight my last point, that the systems thinking approach probably is the most important piece of this. We cannot think in silos. We cannot think just in terms of our industry. We cannot think just in terms of our country. We cannot just think in terms of our species. To Desidero's last point, we got to think in terms beyond us, beyond our paradigm, and that requires a systems thinking approach. I think I would want to leave with that. Thank you.
Perfect. Doreen?
Sorry. I'm very well, I'm an optimist, so I'm hoping that we will get, especially I'm talking from a European perspective here, obviously, that Europe will get its act together, and we will see the reason to, or we'll see that there will be more investments in climate tech, also in hardware coming up. It may be under the umbrella of security, which I don't mind. But I think if you're looking at, especially if you're looking at security, I think we'll see more and more investments into like resilience technology. Resilience is a big word in Europe. Everybody is on like, switched from climate to this resilient talk. So I think I'm hopeful that we will get there.
Perfect. Wendy, quickly.
I think I would say, since this is a meeting for innovators and sustainability, that's exactly what we need. I think we will agree that business as usual isn't good enough, so we need new solutions, and we have lots of different challenges to aim at. So go forth and innovate, I guess is what I would say.
All right, thank you. Cecilio?
To everybody who's like considering building something in climate tech and is currently like in a lot of doubt and uncertainty because the world economy is in turmoil and everything is rather about defense tech or AI and whatever, and you're tempted to actually jump on that boat instead. I say don't and rather trust the science, because this is what is actually true and in the long term will continue to happen. Climate change is real and will continue. Biodiversity loss is real and will continue. And our dependency on all of this is also real. And the demand for solution will rise if we want it or not. So take that and be optimistic that we can actually change it and that we can contribute to a better future. So what I would like to say always is stick to your optimism, because optimism is a duty.
All right. Yassine, all the closing notes, sounds pretty optimistic. Over to you.
Well, it's hard. It's really hard. But I would go along also with Tassilo. So trust the science, be human, and stay realistically optimistic.
All right, Mridul, we'll close with you. Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. So this is what I would say. The future isn't sustainable by default. And if we are not bold enough to design it now, today, nobody else will. At Mankomb, for example, my co-founder is the ex-CXO of a Japanese MNC. I was at a senior leadership position in a German multinational company. We left our comfort zone and got started off with this because we believe that if we don't do it, nobody will. And in this call, there are people who have the tech competence, who have the influence, who have the economic competence to do it. And I think it's time that we get together and do a little bit to what we can. And if you're looking to collaborate, work together or whatever, please do ping in and get in touch.
Perfect. And one small request to all our speakers today. We are getting multiple requests from my backend team that, the attendees who have joined us are asking questions. How do they connect with all our speakers today? I would request if you could drop your LinkedIn email in the chat box so that, the attendees can join directly and ask your questions directly, right? So, all right, with that, we have come to an end of an inspiring conversation. What stood out today was, wasn't just the brilliance on this panel, I would say, but the clarity, honesty, and urgency each one of you brought to the table. This wasn't just a panel, it was a collective, call to action, as Ray said. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for staying with us. And to our brilliant speakers, thank you for not just talking about the climate resilience, which is a very important topic, but showing what it really takes to build it. And like we always say, let's not stop here. Let this be the beginning of deeper collaboration, bold experiments, and solutions that scale with integrity. Until next time, let's keep building, questioning, and more importantly, showing up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again.